Hey guys, short video here to introduce what will be the meat of the agriculture unit that we're going to do and how agriculture affects our world today. You've done a lot, hopefully, so far on the past agricultural revolutions and also a little bit on the agricultural styles, and that you can continue to work on it at your own pace. Certainly is something you're going to want to have done before the test because, again, the tests are open note. So it's something that will be helpful for you. But what we're going to do here is just a few notes to introduce what's called the Green Revolution. And then we will go into and talk about the movie we're going to watch. Just some reminders of things to turn in at the bottom. If you haven't from development and industry, we still don't know when we're going to be able to put grades in. So if you have a question about grades, let me know. I'm going to start going through over next week, which is spring break, and start to grade. So be looking out for that. So let's go ahead and get started. So the third agricultural revolution, we call it the Green Revolution. So I'll be using those terms interchangeably, but usually I'll call it the Green Revolution because it's shorter. So the idea of the Green Revolution was with the purpose of trying to solve world hunger. As populations around the world began to boom, as countries started entering stage 2 of the DTM and LDCs, it was clear that, hey, how are we going to feed everybody? Because there were so many more people. So scientists began to come up with ways to create new seeds, hybrid seeds, what we call genetically modified organisms. So you might want to add GMO or genetically modified organisms to that first tab. But the idea was creating these genetically altered seeds to increase yields and increased output, that these seeds could grow better against difficult conditions, that they could also withstand the use of different fertilizers on them. So you could actually grow something, dump all these chemicals on your tract of land that you're growing crops, and the fertilizers and pesticides and whatever would be used would kill everything that would basically be a threat to the seed, but the seed would continue to grow. So this was like great, right? Because now you don't have a field that's got all these weeds or pests or things. You can take it out. And because of that, we get all this huge impact and this huge increase in production of rice, wheat, corn, rice in particular in Asia, as you've kind of looked into intensive subsistence, wet rice dominant and how that works. But that gives you a sense of just generally how successful it was. And it reduced famines because of crop failure, that famines did not happen as much so that people could eat, and this was a more consistent way of growing crops. However, there are some problems that are going to come up out of this system, and the video that I post, one of the videos, will show you all the good that came out of the Green Revolution. But we make a lot more effort to look at the issues that have been created, because these are issues that are still present in our world today. So we look at environmental damage due to intense land use, that we are using the land so intensely and using so many products into it that it can harm the soil, and that if you do not rotate crops from field to field, that it can zap the nutrients out of that soil. So we look at the environmental damage due to using the land so intensely that we can grow, and turn this basically into a factory, that it hurts the soil. And also, when farmers figure out that they could use these different seeds, and they could use these pesticides and fertilizers and things that could increase their yield, well, all of a sudden they have more than just what they need to eat. Now they can go out and grow a lot more and take what they grow beyond what they need and sell it. And because of the money-making potential, let me get that light out of the way, the money-making potential that the Green Revolution offers, because of you producing so many more crops, it creates this idea of agribusiness. And what that is basically taking food and making it a money-making industry. So instead of food being grown specifically just to feed us and feed the community, the growth of food now is a money-making enterprise. Okay, so you could be a commercial grower and not be like a big business person. Like you could like grow and then take it to a farmer's market, right? And sell like what else you have. But now we have these corporations that develop, and the way that they make money is by growing a lot of food. So all of a sudden, maybe the quality of what they're growing is not as important, or even the process of how you get there. It's if you get the quantity. And the consequences of that quantity process are really something that we have to consider. So when we look at that, the first thing that we want to talk about is in the steps of what we call agribusiness is that you process the food and you produce it, right? You actually grow the food. So that's really the step one of this process. Then you have to think also about how do you get the food once you produce it from place to place? Where do you send it? Where is your market? How does it get there? What's the means of getting your food from point A to point B? How do you convince people to buy your product? How do you market it? So we start thinking about then television, radio, internet, all of these strategies that agribusinesses are going to use to try to convince the consumer to buy their product. And then we actually sell it, right? So we talk about the retail element. Where is it going to be sold at? Under what conditions will it be sold? And then you also have the step of you trying to research and develop new ways of growing your crops in a more efficient way so that you can save money and make more profit. So all of this is kind of looped together, and all of a sudden we go from growing vegetables out in our garden for us as a family to eat to now these massive fields where we're growing one product year after year and growing it in such large quantities that it might have environmental impact on the soil if we're like bombing it with all of these materials that might harm the soil, again, to try to get the crop to grow. But then we also think about like the diversity of what is being grown too. So it also creates what we call a commodity chain. And it's very much what we just went over. It's this process. It's like a ladder that we look at, like how food becomes business, right? It's a chain where a corn becomes much more than just what we eat. There's a lot more to it than just that. So let's look at it here. Like if we were to look at a commodity chain with corn, well, we first had the planting step, right? We have to have our seeds. We have to fertilize and water it. We actually have to do the growing part, right? This is the agriculture part that we think of. And then of course, we have the growing, right? So planting and growing are very much in tandem with each other. We kind of put them in the same place. We got to plant it. You got to have the field ready and till the field and make sure that it's ready to go. Growing it, that process where it has to grow, you have to have the moisture to be able to grow it. And then we harvest it, right? So the corn is harvested, it's dried and stored. And you think of like all of corn's uses, which is not just for us to eat on the cob, but also for animal feed and also for biofuels, right? Ethanol and other fuels that are created from corn. So you have all those processes, and this is where the processing takes place. So we harvest it and then we process it, and then it is marketed. So it could be sold for animal feed, human food, other purposes. So in essence, like commodity chains are created once people realize that food can be used as an economic purpose, right? And that it can be bought and sold. And all of these steps come up. And again, it's not possible without the Green Revolution, which allows us to grow faster, more, stronger, better, more efficient. And now it's about quantity. Quality also can improve, but quantity is the name of the game, so you can sell more to be able to buy. So one question that we're going to be dealing with a lot after the break, and maybe I want you to start thinking about when you watch this movie we're going to watch, is how do we feed the world in the future? What and how do we take and what strategies we can create to be able to feed the world in the future, knowing that our population, if our demographers are correct, and we know is going to grow 3-4 billion more people across the world over the next 70 years, 70, 80 years, how do we feed the world in the future? What is created? Do you see the apple, by the way? Isn't that cool? Look at it. It's very nice, right? It's the earth, right? It's very neat. So that is the question that we're going to deal with. So I want you to refer now to the instructions that are posted on the classroom post, as it's going to tell you about the movie times and what our process is going to be to show this movie sustainable. So check that out. And if you have any questions, let me know. And that's all we got. Bye-bye.